creating VKontakte, effectively the Facebook of Russia.
In 2013, a man named Pavel Durov launched a messaging app. He had recently lost control of his previous company, Russia's largest social network, to allies of the Kremlin, and he had decided that the next thing he built was going to be impossible for any government to take from him. The app was called Telegram. It had end-to-end encryption. It had supergroups that could hold up to 200,000 members in a single channel. It had bots, automated programs that could be plugged into any chat to do anything. And, almost uniquely among major platforms, it had a public, written commitment from its founder that the company would not cooperate with state requests for user data. Anywhere. Ever. What got built on top of that architecture is the subject of today's video. This is an iceberg. It will get worse as we go. Viewer discretion is highly advised. The surface. In April of 2018, the Russian government ordered the country's federal censor to block Telegram inside Russia. The agency, Roskomnadzor, had been demanding access to Telegram's encryption keys. Durov had refused. Over 3 days in mid-April, Roskomnadzor issued blocking orders against nearly 20 million IP addresses. Most of them did not actually belong to Telegram. They belonged to Google, to Amazon, to Microsoft, to international cloud infrastructure that millions of unrelated Russian businesses depended on. Banking systems went down. Online retailers stopped working. None of it stopped Telegram. The app stayed up. The Russian government quietly lifted the ban in 2020. The lesson by then had reached every illicit actor on the global internet. Telegram could not be turned off. We're going to start descending. The privacy wars. We are now on Tier 2. There is a Russian Telegram bot called Eye of God. You type a name, a phone number, or a license plate into the chat. The bot returns the corresponding person's home address, their identity card details, and recent geolocation pings. It runs on a combination of legitimately public records and illegally leaked Russian state databases, passport records, tax records, FSB files dumped onto the dark web after various government breaches. By 2021, it was being used by stalkers, by abusive ex-partners, and by the journalists at Bellingcat who used it to identify the FSB officers who had poisoned Alexei Navalny. A Moscow court ordered the bot banned in July 2021. Its creator's apartment was raided. Within a week, he had spun up mirrors. The clones are still running. The same architectural pattern was used a few years later for something else. In January 2026, The Guardian published an investigation that identified at least 150 active Telegram channels distributing AI-generated, non-consensual sexual imagery of real women. The user uploads a photograph of a woman, a celebrity, a colleague, a former girlfriend, to the bot. The AI strips the clothing. The image is returned, photorealistic, in seconds. The Guardian traced users to the United Kingdom, Brazil, China, Nigeria, Russia, and India. The total estimated user base was in the millions. When the journalists reported specific channels, Telegram banned them. Replacement channels appeared inside a day. We're going to step away from this for a moment. The markets. We are now on Tier 3. In April of 2022, German federal police seized the servers of a darknet marketplace called Hydra. Hydra had been processing roughly $5.2 billion in cryptocurrency drug trades, about 80% of the entire global darknet market. When the servers came down, daily darknet revenue dropped from $4.2 million to $447,000. The recovery, when it came, was what researchers at Chainalysis called a Cambrian explosion, a new generation of Russian-language markets, Mega, Blacksprut, Solaris, and Kraken, opened to fill the vacuum. All of them moved their vendor coordination, their customer service, and their cryptocurrency cash-out operations onto Telegram. Then the markets started fighting each other. In late 2022, a pro-Kremlin hacking group called Killnet, aligned with Solaris, launched cyber attacks on a forum that supported their rival OMG. In January 2023, Kraken retaliated by completely hacking and taking Solaris offline. And on March 1st of that year, in a move that signaled how the rules had changed, Kraken used a Telegram doxing service to publish the real names, passport photographs, home addresses, and live geolocation pings of 3 Solaris developers directly to their own public Telegram channel. The men were not arrested. They went into hiding. Kraken absorbed Solaris's market share, roughly $150 million in annual transaction volume. Public, retaliatory doxing of one criminal organization by another became a normal business practice on Telegram. The terror networks. We are now on Tier 4. In September of 2024, the United States Department of Justice unsealed a 15-count indictment against 2 American citizens, a 34-year-old woman named Dallas Humber from Elk Grove, California, and a 37-year-old man named Matthew Allison from Boise, Idaho, accusing them of leading an international neo-Nazi accelerationist network called the Terrorgram Collective. The collective operates across dozens of interconnected Telegram channels. It produces propaganda. It distributes detailed manuals on bomb making and on attacks on power infrastructure. It maintains what the indictment calls hit lists, named federal officials, judges, journalists with home addresses marked for assassination on the basis of race, religion, or sexual orientation. The collective produces what it calls saints. These are Telegram canonization pages dedicated to mass shooters whose attacks fit the network's accelerationist ideology. The shooter who killed 10 black shoppers at a supermarket in Buffalo, New York in May 2022 became a saint. So did the 19-year-old who killed 2 people outside an LGBTQ bar in Bratislava, Slovakia in October of the same year. The Bratislava attacker's 60-page manifesto was the first in history to explicitly cite Terrorgram publications by name as his radicalizing influence. Humber and Allison face up to 220 years in prison if convicted. There is a separate channel that we should mention. It is called Gray Zone. 520,000 subscribers. It functions as the unofficial propaganda arm of the Russian private military company Wagner. In 2017, Wagner mercenaries filmed themselves torturing a Syrian man named Mohammed Taha al-Abdullah at a gas plant in central Syria. They beat him to death with a sledgehammer, dismembered his body, and set the remains on fire. The footage circulated on Russian Telegram for years. The sledgehammer became Wagner's calling card. In 2022, Gray Zone published a follow-up, a video of the same kind of execution, this time of a Russian inmate who had defected to the Ukrainian side and been recaptured. Open-source researchers at Bellingcat geolocated the killing. The channel kept the footage up. Their administrator was killed in a separate ambush in Mali in July 2024. The channel is still online. The depths. We are now on Tier 5. In March of 2022, a 17-year-old high school student in Michigan named Jordan DeMay was contacted on Instagram by what appeared to be a teenage girl. He sent her an explicit photograph of himself. Within minutes, the account was no longer pretending to be a girl. It was demanding $1,000 in cash, threatening to send the photograph to every member of his family. The conversation lasted 6 hours. Jordan said he was going to take his own life. The reply was 2 words, quote, "Do that." Jordan DeMay died that evening. The men extorting him were brothers, Samuel and Samson Ogoshi, 24 and 21 years old, working out of Lagos, Nigeria. They were part of a much larger sextortion ring that coordinated through private Telegram channels, exchanged scripts, and paid commissions to US-based money launderers who converted the cryptocurrency into clean dollars. The FBI traced them through the digital trail. They were extradited in August 2023. In September 2024, both were sentenced to 17.5 years in federal prison. There is a network even further down than the sextortion rings. It is called 764. It is named after the area code of the Texas town its founder grew up in. A teenager named Bradley Chance Cadenhead, who built the original network as a small group of accelerationist boys targeting vulnerable minors for grooming, blackmail, and forced production of self-harm videos. By 2023, the FBI had elevated 764 to what it called a Tier 1 Terrorism Investigative Matter, the same designation used for international jihadist networks, and issued a public service announcement warning parents about it. In April 2025, the DOJ announced the arrests of 2 senior operators of a 764 subnetwork. The first was a 21-year-old Greek national. The second was a 20-year-old from North Carolina. The federal complaint described 764's operational logic in a single sentence. Quote, "To destroy civilized society through the corruption and exploitation of vulnerable populations, which often include minors." By the summer of 2024, the international pressure on the platform itself had become overwhelming. On August 24th of that year, Pavel Durov flew his private jet from Azerbaijan to Le Bourget Airport, just outside Paris. French police were waiting on the tarmac. The charges brought by the French National Prosecutor's Office included complicity in the distribution of child sexual abuse material, complicity in organized crime, complicity in drug trafficking, complicity in fraud, and refusal to communicate information to lawful authorities. He was held for 4 days, ordered to pay 5 million euros in bail, barred from leaving France, and required to report to police twice a week. He is, as of this recording, still under formal judicial supervision in France. The platform he built is still running. There is one more, the Nth Room. In late 2018, on Korean Telegram, a man calling himself God began approaching teenage girls on Twitter with offers of high-paying part-time modeling work. The girls who responded were asked for identification, a copy of their resident registration card, their bank account, their home address, the names of their parents and siblings. The information was for the modeling contract. Once the man had it, the modeling work disappeared and a new conversation began. He had their information now. He knew where they lived. He knew where their families lived. The new arrangement was that they were going to do whatever he told them to do, on camera, for as long as he decided. The original creator's name was Moon Hyung-wook. His architecture was copied within months by a different man, a 24-year-old named Cho Ju-bin, operating under the handle Doctor. Cho's version, which he called the Doctor's Room, was bigger and more sophisticated than the original. By 2020, the South Korean police had identified at least 103 named victims. 26 of them were underage. The system Cho built had 3 tiers. The lowest tier required $200 in untraceable cryptocurrency. The middle tier was $600. The highest tier, what Cho called the VIP room, required up to $1,500 in Bitcoin. Inside the rooms, the girls on screen had been ordered to perform specific acts, to carve the word slave into their skin with a knife, to ingest insects, to drink from toilet bowls, to hold up their pinky finger to the camera in every video to prove that the footage was new and that the girl was still under his control. The Korean police, by the time the case closed, estimated that approximately 60,000 paying men had passed through the rooms. The system collapsed because of 2 university students. In July 2019, 2 female undergraduates operating under the pseudonym Tracker Team Fire infiltrated the Telegram rooms. They documented everything. In November, they handed a dossier to a journalist named Kim Won at the Hankyoreh, a Seoul daily newspaper. The first article appeared at the end of that month. The operators retaliated by doxing Kim Won. They posted photographs of his family and his home address to the chat rooms. They threatened to hunt him down. He kept publishing. The story broke open. A petition demanding the unmasking of every paying member of the Doctor's Room was signed by more than 5 million Korean citizens. The South Korean parliament rewrote the sexual violence punishment law. Cho Ju-bin was paraded in front of cameras outside the Seoul Central District Court in March 2020. He was sentenced to 40 years in prison, later upgraded to 42 on appeal. Moon Hyung-wook received 34. Between 2021 and 2024, copycat operations attempting to restart the Nth Room had to be shut down by Korean police on 5 separate occasions. The 2 university students have never publicly identified themselves.